A novel and an organization would generally be regarded as unrelated things, members of different categories. One deals in airy matters of fiction, the other in brute economic realities. But Daniel Defoe and the Bank of England explores the proposition that the novel and the organization share fundamental characteristics of form, function, and technique. That is to say, they work in the same way. Compare the emergence of Daniel Defoe's Moll Flanders and the Bank of England. The period from which they emerged is sometimes called the Age of Projects. The novel and the bank are projects of a projecting age. After all, the project is a risky adventure, and the 18th century projector would now be called an entrepreneur. But in the 18th century, the darker side of the projector was well recognized. This was someone who was admired and feared, a schemer who engaged in fantastic speculation in order to convince others to invest in their imaginings. Fiction and fact relied on each other then, and they still do. Most of our tale is set at the close of the 17th century and the beginning of the 18th, a period of extreme inventiveness. The figure of Daniel Defoe, inventor, businessman, writer, politician, and secret agent, characterizes the age. His first published work, an essay upon projects, bottles this energy. It is a series of proposals for the social and economic improvement of the nation. Defoe explains that the richness of ideas at this time was generated from the humor of invention, which produced new contrivances, engines, and projects to get money. One of the keenest and most thriving areas of invention was the emerging joint stock company. Defoe seems to have coined the term the projecting age. He is characteristically astute in his attempt to define a project. Quote, "The building of Babel was a right project, for indeed the true definition of a project is, as is said before, a vast undertaking, too big to be managed, and therefore likely to come to nothing." The essential ends of a project, he declares in anticipation of Adam Smith's economic philosophy some 70 years later, are that it should attempt to fulfill public and private want. A project requires good providence, he argues, for some projects, although wildly unlikely, do succeed. He gives the example of William Phipps's project to search for sunken Spanish treasure, a project that proved central to the story of the Bank of England. Quote, "Witness Sir William Phipps's voyage to the wreck. It was a mere project, a lottery of 100,000 to 1 odds, a hazard which, had it failed, everybody would have been ashamed to have owned themselves concerned in. A voyage that would have been as much ridiculed as Don Quixote's adventure upon the windmill. Bless us, that folks should go 3,000 miles to angle in the open sea for pieces of 8. Why, they should have made ballads of it, and the merchants would have said of every unlikely adventure, it was like Phipps's wreck voyage. But it had success." Defoe here compares a project to a story. Phipps's risky venture is compared to the one undertaken by Don Quixote. Both Cervantes and Phipps were speculators. They initiated projects that could have been part of the litter of history, but ended up having ramifications way beyond their projectors' expectations.